Time for a bit of a recap on everything really. So yeah, it's obviously been a bit of a unusual year. I'm not going to go into that. Let's talk about this channel. I've not really done a channel intro, and I thought it's about time just to kind of sum up what this channel's about and the history to it and the future, and just kind of yeah, talk about a few of the things that I don't normally sort of talk about, because on my main videos I do try and just keep it to pretty much technical stuff. um, so really, yeah, the channel, I started it, as you can see, about a year and a half ago, and I had a proper day job back then, and in between times I was meddling with a Raspberry Pi, and part of my traction with the computers is making things smaller, more minimalist. I spent many years working with Windows, desktop PCs and so on, and the beauty of Linux is that, especially Linux, Raspberry Pi, is you can make things very simple. Um, a Raspberry Pi Zero, or even better, an Arduino, just does one thing. And in some ways that's really pure and really simple, and I think that's something to strive for, really. Um, Obviously you can't make things too minimalist, otherwise they just don't do anything at all. But with regard to, I think I can't remember. Is it even part of the PEP? But I don't know. Do one thing and do it well. And I kind of trying to copy that motto now throughout most things I do. And yeah, anyway, the channel. Yeah, so I started off, I think probably my first ever video, I think I'm right in saying, was I turned I turned a coffee can into like an Alexa with a 16 by 2 LCD display connected to a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it was, in fact, it was web scraping. And I used Beautiful Soup, and I quickly realized that Selenium, yeah, I didn't warm to it really. Anyway, that's a bit of my bias and prejudice against Selenium, so I won't go there. Obviously it's got its uses. So yeah, I plodded along doing that for a while, and my history was actually working for a manufacturing company that had lots of well, some CNC machines and some that weren't controlled by computer. And I worked with a clever man who was trying to gradually control more of the machines with computers. And yeah, we had a contractor in who programmed in Delphi, which uses Pascal, and C and C++. I think it was actually C with hindsight, but he did a lot of electronics, and one thing led to another. And then I thought, well, could I actually attempt to even make my own CNC machine and see, I don't know, see what it was all about, see how far I could push things. And one thing led to another, and you can see all the other videos. I kind of got as far as my budget would allow me. It would have been a lot easier to actually just buy a kit or build a 3D printer. And with hindsight, maybe I should have just built a 3D printer, because the underlying yeah, the underlying principles are pretty similar. So yeah, that's the channel, and that's my background. So yeah, just shed some light on that. Now, next, 2021. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about global pandemics or anything controversial. 2021. I'm trying to improve the quality of the videos for everybody's benefit. The sound, the picture quality, the presentation, and so on. It's just a lot easier to learn if the sound quality is good and if things are presented neatly. And as you can see on the screen here, I sometimes get carried away with the sort of the bright colors and the explosions, the graphic effects. But beneath it all, I do have a kind of an underlying principle of keeping things minimalist. So yeah, well, I'll be striving for that in 2021, not only with the videos, but more importantly with the code. And for instance, Scrapy, let's talk about Scrapy because I know quite a few people follow those videos. Scrapy is a great framework, but it can get really, well, not complicated, but it can get complex, which goes against, I don't know what it's called. Is it called the PEP poem, or what was it called? I know Code Monkey King quoted it. Let's just the Zen of the Zen of Python, wasn't it? I'll get back to Code Monkey King in a bit because he's yeah, he's been a good influence and helped me, and I would recommend his channel if you don't already know about it. So yeah, what was I on about? Complex. Simple is better than complex. And I think I actually rewrote some of Code Monkey King's Scrapy Spider one time. And again, it was really as a learning exercise for me, and knowing that I had his code to refer back to because his code obviously worked. And then I thought I would try and write it in using more of the Scrapy framework. And I'll put the link down here, and if I put the link to my video, then you'll also see the link to his video. So yeah, simple is better than complex. That is the one problem I would agree with him about Scrapy. Scrapy is not always simple. So if you're learning Scrapy, I would strongly encourage you to do so. But when you're using Scrapy, try and think, how can I use the power of Scrapy without getting bogged down with its complexity? I think that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, so 2021, there'll be more Scrapy, that's for sure. And I'll probably also be looking at trial versions of proxies, potentially online scrapers, other methods of web scraping, potentially even looking at jQuery. Again, Code Monkey King did some scraping using just jQuery, which was pretty amazing. And I'll probably go and look more at that. And again, Python isn't the only tool that will enable you to do web scraping. That's certainly not the case. However, the main focus of this channel will always be Python, and there will always be a background or potentially some small electronics projects which I may still throw in because they're fun. And if you learn to program an Arduino, you learn C. And if you learn C, then you're part of the way towards being familiar with PHP or even JavaScript. So yeah, there's a knock-on effect. Just because you're messing about with, let me get it. Just because you're messing about with an Arduino, yeah, okay, I said messing about, but what you're actually doing is you're learning. And if you're tinkering with an Arduino, you're actually getting more and more familiar with C. C as opposed to C++. I'll make that quite clear. So yeah, 2021. Anyway, back to web scraping. We'll be looking at more different ways of doing things, and I will try and do some more in-depth videos, because if you like those, which I think they go down quite well, I'll pick out one particular aspect, possibly of Scrapy, or I know XPath is such a powerful tool or powerful thing if used well, and it's a bit of a steep learning curve. How am I doing that? Yeah, obviously it's a steep learning curve with XPath, but I think it's worth persevering with. And yeah, lastly on web scraping, as you might have seen my recent video, so I'm just looking at my notes, I've used MySQL with my Amazon scraper, which I then used for price tracking. And the power of using a database is that you can perform better query. You can perform queries on it, whereas with Excel or CSV, you're pretty much you're restricted to whatever you can do in Excel, and also the size. I think it was the food.com spider I did. I had 500,000 records, and I think that's safe to CSV okay, but whether you want to search through that using a CSV or Excel, I don't know. Probably not. The beauty of a database is it's got various advanced things like indexing and so on, which I need to learn more about. And as I learn those things, I will. Part of the reason I make these videos is to help myself remember things. And I think there's a saying, if you can't explain something, you don't understand it. So I try to explain things and make sure that I can explain things, because then it makes me confident that I understand things. And I've said, yeah, C, C++, I've mentioned those. I'm not, I'm too long in the tooth to become the world's greatest C++ programmer, but I think an awareness of it is always going to stand you in good stead. And I will keep dipping back into this book. I bought this book, when was this dated? I think it's, wow, 2003. The principles still stand, and if you learn from this, you will be able to program an Arduino. If you can program an Arduino, then you are happy and you will become more confident, because you will know that it's not such a big jump to cross between programming languages, and going forward I think it's inevitable that we will all need to do so. So and also it's probably a good idea not to get too sorry about that, Windows Defender summary, just stop it, go away. I've got Linux VM, and I've also got a old Dell laptop which I've wiped and put Linux Mint on. Do you use Linux? Do you use Windows? Or do you use a Mac? I'm not particularly bothered what you use, but it's just interesting. If you want to leave a comment, then it'll kind of give me an idea of sort of whether I need to stay bilingual, trilingual when I'm doing code. I mean, the beauty of Python really is it's cross-platform, and obviously so Scrapy, and yeah, C and C++ are, I think it's good to have a familiarity with them. The other day I tried writing something in C++ that would parse text, and it was an absolute minefield. But for programming, I don't know, for programming a game or yeah, books. So I've just shown you, I only own about 4 books. I think I've shown you the Python crash course. Let me just I'll show you all of my books, because I think it's important not to get sort of obsessed with buying learning materials. So I've been learning IT on and off, or sort of, I say IT, programming, whatever, for longer than I really want to admit on camera. But let's just, I I did have loads of Cisco books because I'll go back to Cisco in a minute, but yeah, these are all the books I own, and I think this is a really good way to do it, because if you have 4, 5, 6 books and you restrict yourself to not buying any more, you will then make sure that you know these books inside out. And whenever you get tempted to buy another book, you'll just think, well, chances are it's in here. And if you're beginning, then this is brilliant. This was the first Python book I bought, and I think it was following on from Python 2.7. And yeah, I think from the tail end of Python 2.7 to Python 3, this would have been great. I think probably now some of the things are starting to get a bit dated, and I think there's a newer version. So it's not cheap though, it's $39. So for the money, just my personal opinion is that this one is probably, I found it better. So that's 2 books. This book I bought many years ago, and I still look at it probably once a week. For instance, it talks about passing arguments by reference or by value. And I know if you follow CodeMonkey King, the other day he was doing a video about this sort of subject. And yeah, pointers. You'll learn about pointers. You'll learn about memory addresses, memory allocation, so on. Abstract data types. So yeah, I've not actually got up. I've not finished this book. I need to. Passing pointers to functions. The address of operator. Lots of stuff in here that if you just stick to Python, you'll have, I wouldn't say a nasty surprise, but you will have a surprise when one day you ever get exposed to lower level programming languages. With Python, a lot of the dirty work's been done for you. So it's good to know this because you will know what's happening under the bonnet with Python. Okay, and this is the most recent book I've bought. And to be really, really honest, it's possibly one of, I probably won't buy many more books in ever. Python one-liners, I think this really appealed to me because it's written by Christian Mayer, his PhD in computer science. He does Thinkster, if you've ever seen that. And yeah, the power of what you can do with one line is amazing. And I really agree when people say that the shorter the code, obviously you need to make code readable, but 10 lines of code that does a job impresses me more than 1,000 lines of code that does the same job. Right, so we've covered channel, background, 2021, web scraping, C++ books, and yeah, back to you, the viewer. What would you like to see? If you like, I can talk about some of the other channels, which I think are really good, but I'm also would be interested to listen to you, and what channels do you watch other than obviously the fantastic Dr. Pi channel. I've mentioned CodeMonkey King, Corey Schaefer. I'm sure you all watch. I think he's the sort of the gold standard that we should, as programmers, we should aspire to, and also as YouTube content creators, the same applies. Everything he does is very well explained, and yeah, enough said. We all know about Corey Schaefer. I think that's probably enough. You're not really going to learn much from this. Nothing technical. And I would just say, just comment as much as you can, because many of the comments I get give me ideas to do more videos. And as long as you're not being lazy, I'm not going to do anybody's project for them or their college course or whatever. But yeah, the Zen of Python. Now is better than never. On that note, I will leave you and I will be back with more programming, Python, informative videos for your viewing pleasure. Until next time.